Hey everybody, it's Jim here, and welcome to the Audiomo Podcast. We still don't have a name, Dave. Number 3. Today, we're going to just get right into this. I want to talk about the Quad Cortex. Now, I know you don't have a Quad Cortex, but before I jump into any details, what are your impressions of it as an outsider, as somebody who's watched some videos, who's maybe heard some sound samples?
You know, it's weird. I feel like it was all anybody was talking about before it got released, and they were doing some really cool things, and it was just like, everybody kept going like, oh man, when the Quad Cortex comes out, it's going to be this huge game changer. And I mean, I know it is from a functionality standpoint, but it's weird. I haven't really heard that much about it since it came out. And I don't know if maybe it's that people aren't able to get their hands on them. I know they're pretty pricey, and obviously with pandemic stuff and everything going on, like, inventory has been a thing. But, I think from the tone stuff I've heard, it lives up to the hype, but I just am not hearing that much about it. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of went totally off a cliff as far as the YouTuber coverage of it. Like I said, well, in the other video, you hadn't seen it, but basically Rabia is the one that is consistently using it. One of my viewers mentioned that Fluff used it twice, and it's just never been seen again. So basically, to deduce what I said in that video, I think that it was kind of like two perfect storms hitting at once as far as when it was released, obviously all the YouTubers got it and then nobody was able to get it. So it kind of doubles the hype, and the fact that you still can't get one now makes it so it's still going to be unattainable for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But what I'm really concerned about is just how fickle this community is, man. And I don't really use Facebook or anything like that other than to basically post these videos, like links to that and music stuff like that. But I am in the Quad Cortex group, and somebody posted a link to a video today that somebody made calling it a flop. And he goes on to pretty much make the complaints that we've all known about from day one, as far as it doesn't have a looper, and they haven't made it so that you can implement the plugins that you bought from Neural DSP to use with it. And I'm like, well, first of all, this is all fair criticism, because, these are things that are, it's valid.
Yeah.
And I would like to use the Soldano plugin on the Quad Cortex because I notice a difference. It sounds better. But the part that made me laugh was about 10 minutes after just regurgitating all the stuff that I had just mentioned, that, again, is well known even by somebody like you who doesn't own the Quad Cortex. He goes on to really explain why he's mad, and I found this so funny because he's an amp profiler seller guy, right? So he goes through, and he's pissed off basically because Neural DSP don't provide an ecosystem for people
For him
to
to sell.
capture their
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so, but his way of presenting it, this is the funniest part. He lists out all of the prices of his gear as full MSRP. Like, not even close to what these things actually sell for, even at Sweetwater, if you were to go there. And he's just like, this is all the money, and, I'm investing this, that. And I'm like, dude, like, just come out and say that you're pissed off immediately.
That they're not going to help you make money. Yeah.
And why I bring this up is because I want to ask you, do you think that is a fair criticism of the Quad Cortex?
No, because one, for me, it was never about the profiling. That was always like the nice add-on, like to me, I think the other criticisms that he has are way more fair, and I would, I'd be with him if he leaned on those. Like, to me, the fact that it doesn't do what the plugins do makes it like an insanely weird ask, for me as a user. Like, their plugins are amazing. That's what this thing should be. It should be, how do I get their plugins from my computer onto a roadworthy, device? Like, if you want to go sell profiles, and there's plenty of other places that let you do that, it was always just like a cool thing that it also did,
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. And the thing that really disappoints me the most is I feel like that should have been how they launched the product to begin with, as far as with the plug-in capability in it, because so many of us, myself included, we were sold on the Quad Cortex because of how good the plugins are.
Right.
And then we figured, if anything, putting the plugins in, they might even be able to make them sound better. So the fact that you still can't do that, I mean, that's obviously that's a con, man. There's no sugarcoating that.
And it seems like such a lot, like, so, you know, we're talking about how, like, we don't hear anything about it. Like, to me, the smart marketing move would have been you put every one of these artists plugin into that board, and then you get them out there using it. I mean, obviously, you know, bands are not really touring the way they were before, but, you know, even when they're like back, you know, now that we're starting to ramp back up into that kind of, you know, same sort of schedule and stuff, like, why isn't, you know, Tim Henson using the Quad Cortex as his main rig with his plugin on his tour now? Like, that would just seem like the easiest way to go in there and just be like, hey, these guys are out there using it every day on tour with the plugins, with their sound. That's how good our shit is. Go buy it. Like, it's such an easy sell. Why isn't that what they're doing?
Well, I don't know if that's what they're doing in this specific instance that I'm going to bring up, but there is a big band that is doing that right now, and that's Megadeth. Kiko switched over. I don't know if he had a Fractal or if he had a Kemper, but he switched over to the Quad Cortex, and he's also uploading everything that he's using live to the cloud. So if you have a Quad Cortex, it's awesome. You can have pretty much what he has right there. You know, sans the hands, the talent, and the amp. But you're exactly right, though, because if you have somebody who's still going out and playing, and you mentioned Tim Henson, there's another person you can appeal to a whole other audience, Corey Wong. Corey Wong's still going out and touring. He's playing gigs, and he has a flagship plugin as well. He's got a brand new Stratocaster. I mean, he's the perfect marketing tool right now because he has the two kind of things that he could be pushing at the same time, really digging in that signature sound. I agree. It's a missed opportunity from them. But I feel like they're overwhelmed, honestly. And I'm not making excuses for them, but I feel like they're genuinely overwhelmed.
I mean, and you got to feel for them on that front, right? They're a plugin company, obviously, first and foremost. And they're a plugin company that went, hey, what if we put this on a piece of hardware, right? Because there are other competitors to the Quad Cortex, but I think you and myself would argue none of them are doing sound the way Neural DSP is right now. And they know if they hit that market the way that they're hitting it with their plugin sound on a piece of hardware, that they can dominate. And that's why I'm sort of surprised that with how well they've been doing, I want to say celebrity or, you know, just artist integration, right? That you wouldn't be leaning so heavy on that. Like you say the thing about the Megadeth guy, like why it just seems like so obvious. Like get Tim Henson out there on record, you know, saying I'm using this every day when I'm on tour. I'm messing with plugins. I'm messing with like live setups. Here's what I'm using. Pump it up there. Get like fan interaction back and forth, and then you're suddenly, I will argue at least at too high of a price point, but you're the only guy in the game that can make this thing that does what my favorite artists do. You know, I don't know. It seems like it would have been so easy to just leverage the artist you're already working with. You know.
I agree with you completely. And, you know, when you're talking about price, the fact that the price did jump, I think that's also something that is kind of a valid criticism of it as well. But I feel like people don't do that with every brand. I feel like Neural DSP are the only ones that are kind of getting shit for this. I look at, you know, a brand like Fender, or if you want to stay kind of in this interface / whatever kind of world that we're in right now, look at the Apollo prices, man. Look at how much those changed in the last 12 months. One of those Apollo 4s, I think it's up $600 from where it was. That chip shortage is no joke. But, I mean, to just almost focus only on Neural DSP for this because, I don't know, maybe it's because there's so much hype around the product and the Apollo seems almost like a legacy thing at this point because it's been around seemingly forever. I just don't think it's fair that it all gets kind of heaped on them in that aspect.
No, yeah, you know, and I will say I'm going to walk back my statement. I actually think that the price is probably pretty fair. And I say that like looking at, you know, an Axe-Fx or a Kemper or even a full-fledged Helix, right? They're all in the same range. And honestly, I have a Stomp, which I think is, you know, for me, that's the perfect price point to what it's doing. And I guess I think maybe the perception of it was like, oh, they already have all these plugins. They're just going to put it on a pedal board and then they're going to sell it to me. And then it was like, oh, fuck, for $1,600 or whatever it is. I don't even know what the new price is, you know. It just sort of seemed like a lot. And I think maybe that's where people kind of were like, oh, okay. That being said, I think that the feature set that it comes with is totally worth it, especially when you compare it to a full-fledged Helix or an Axe-Fx or something like that. Especially the floorboard models of the Axe-Fx, which are crazy expensive as well. And arguably, I think they sound better, right? So, I mean, realistically, I should be totally fine with that price tag. But I don't know. There's something about dropping that kind of money, especially on maybe something so new. I guess what I wanted them to do was come in with like an $800 or $900 product that just like crushed the market, just like made everybody else's offerings look stupid. And I was a little disappointed when they didn't do that, but I get it.
No, I agree completely. And one thing I will say, I really like the new price point of the FM9. I think that's awesome. But I don't think people also really consider the footprint of these two things. And the Quad Cortex is so pedalboard friendly, whereas something like the FM9 it's a lot bulkier, it's a lot bigger.
Yeah, it's your whole pedal board.
Yeah, and that's something that if you're sitting at home and you're working and you're not planning on going out and playing live, then that really won't bother you. That wouldn't bother me. But if you're somebody like me who's going out and playing with this thing, that's something that is a consideration. And the other thing is, if you do want to run multiple people through it that aren't just guitarists, the Quad Cortex is the king of that group, because you can technically do it through the Helix, but it's far superior experience on the Neural DSP, and that's even as of right now. Who knows how they're going to optimize it, but I feel like...
And I agree, and that's where I think the price point is worth it, because they're offering something that the other guys aren't really offering in that aspect, and it's really not that much more expensive than any of those guys are. In some cases, less expensive,
Yeah, I agree completely. I think the price it's not ideal. I think that the original price was perfect as it was, but is this the end of the world? I don't think so. I think it's still, considering what you're getting and considering, how new it is and how good it is already, then I don't think it's the biggest end of the world. And I don't think that as many people that are complaining about the prices, I don't even think the majority of these people have one on pre-order. It's just one of those things where you just go to forums and you do whatever you do with your spare time.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, we thought about getting one, and then, I was going to go. So me and my bass player, we both bought Stomps, and then we have a Behringer, one of those like X16s, and we're using that to kind of like run our live rig, right? And it's easy because it all, fits into a pretty small little footprint, and then we've got like basically a little hard drive that plays back multiple file audio for the backing tracks and everything. And like realistically, all of that is definitely, I don't know, probably $2,600, all that stuff all together, with everything else that we have. There's like patch bays and all that kind of crap in there too. And I mean, I could have just bought a Cortex and probably covered most of it, so I do think that they are offering something that you really can't get without probably more in peripherals. It's definitely an interesting idea, and I still think I might revisit it at some point. Mm-hmm. The only thing I don't like about doing the multi-person setup like that is that I'm sure my bass player would want to be able to take it home and like mess around with stuff and set things up. And obviously like setting all this stuff up for live it's super intensive, right? Like we have sessions with all this like MIDI crap in it to like run the lights and run, all of our pedal board switches and all this crap. Like, if it's one device that we have to like pass back and forth to each other, that's a problem, and maybe that would be solved if there was some sort of like, obviously Helix has Helix native and things like that. So I can sort of emulate, what my Stomp would be doing with Helix native and that's why it's kind of a bummer to hear that I can't, just immediately drop whatever the, Neural DSP plugins or whatever right on the board. Maybe that would be a way to substitute, but it's not a great solve for that in all aspects either,
No, I agree. I think it's just difficult. There's so many things, and I almost think that they got a little too far ahead of themselves with just how much they put out there that this thing was going to be able to do. I almost feel like it would have been smarter of them to kind of hold some cards closer to them initially, instead of announcing it with all of this stuff immediately, because if they had done that, then you wouldn't have anybody complaining that features are missing, because they wouldn't have known those features
because they wouldn't have known
there.
They were supposed to be there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's something that could have been avoided, but I mean, what are they going to do now? They've made their bed, they got to lie in it. I still think it's a great product. I just thought it's just funny to see how trends change from the hype going all the way up to the hype going all the way back down. But I mean, what product doesn't do that? Even ones that are successful. There's always about a hype time, especially on YouTube when it comes to new gear.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I would be interesting to see because it's such a good value proposition from a feature standpoint. And I will say, like, so I'm a designer, like a UX designer by day, and like the whole turning the foot switches into rotary encoders, like, what a cool idea. Why has nobody done that before? Like, so I wonder, when the dust settles and everything's back to normal and we can, get things at normal speeds at normal prices or whatever, like, are they going to be able to get over the hump of this time that they lost kind of not being able to pull it together?
I will transition perfectly from that. I completely agree. But speaking of getting out and getting things back to normal, let's change subjects real quick to something a lot cheaper to the Quad Cortex. Now, as you can see behind me, I have that Orville by Gibson, and I love that guitar, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna buy a really nice case for it, or at least some sort of case, because from Japan, obviously 99% of the guitars, especially from that era, didn't come with hard shell cases. So I have a gig bag, and it's a piece of paper, basically. It doesn't actually protect anything. So I go to Sweetwater and I type in Les Paul hard case. I think the cheapest one is $120. So I'm like, that's madness. I go to Musician's Friend and I'm like, they used to have them for $59.99. I remember this. Nope, $100. And I'm like, what the hell has happened? I'm like, even cases have gone up this much money at this point. This is insane. So what we were talking about right before this is we saw that Harley Benton made a new case called what is it? What do they call it? A Lite Case, something like that. Yeah, for €40, and it kind of looks appealing-ish. I don't know. What do you think about these kind of hybrid gig bags?
As somebody who plays shows and stuff, I haven't seen one that I would really trust, like, actually running around with. And I mean, I don't know. I feel like the case thing's been like this for a long time. The last time I got a case, I bought it with another guitar, and I managed to talk the guy down to $80. It's just like how it is. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I've heard great things about the mono stuff. I have never seen one in person, so I can't really attest to it. But these like hybrid, semi-hard shit. I'm trying to think of a non-phallic term for it. I don't know. I mean, no, I as the amount of times that like people have hit my case and we've dropped stuff and the sound guy like pushes shit over and stuff falls. I just don't think I can not put it in an actual hard case at this point.
My problem is, if this was a Telecaster I was shopping for a case for, I think I would gamble on it, and I wouldn't really mind so much, because I've literally had Telecasters get knocked over off the stand on stage from people in the back line as I'm playing. I've looked over, I've seen it face down on the ground, I've been like, oh God, my guitar, and it's fine. But the fact that it's a freaking Les Paul, man, these things, I can't do it. So I have to spend the money, and it's just a lot of money for a case.
Yeah. It does feel ridiculous, but I will say, yeah, if there was anything that was going to bust, it'd be an incredibly nice Les Paul that would just, they're like iPhones. They just shatter.
Yeah, and they never play the same either. And I've played ones with really good neck repairs on them where you wouldn't feel the difference on it, but if you played it before and then after, I mean, it works. There's nothing fundamentally wrong so long as the repair was done correctly. It's just
doesn't feel the same.
It's like buying a sports car that was, wrecked. It's just never going to be the same after that. I don't know. Maybe I'm alone in that boat.
No, I get you. I had a friend who had a Mustang that got stolen, and then they ripped everything out of it, and then he got the insurance money and got it all fixed up, and he just sold it like a month later because it just didn't drive the same. And it's what you're asking for with a Les Paul in a soft case. That being said, I only own one hard case because I only ever really bring one guitar to a show, and the rest of them sit here, and I have a couple of gig bags. Like if I know I'm going somewhere where I'm just going to drive and get there and it's going to, like I'm playing at somebody else's place or another studio or something, it would be okay for that. But if you were like legitimately bringing it places, touring with it, going out with it, doing shows with it, I don't know. I'd be hard pressed to trust anything else. I have another question for you for Harley Benton.
Yes.
So, as somebody who has a Harley Benton, I've got two Harley Benton guitars, and a couple other things Harley Benton. Have you bought anything else from Harley Benton other than guitars?
I tried the power supply. It's not bad. Yeah, I don't have it close up. It's in the closet. No, I haven't bought anything else that's branded as Harley Benton. I was tempted to get a bass. I'm not gonna lie to you because the value is right there, and I sold that American Professional too. And I don't know, man. There's not really anything else that really jumps out at me. I look at the amps, and I know that they're basically the mono price amps. If you look at them side by side, it's the same exact thing. The little tube amps they have that are pretty cheap. And the only thing that turns me off about the cabinets, I almost bought one of the 1x12s. It has a Celestian in it, but it's a Chinese-made V30. It's not an American-made V30. So at that point, I would want to rip it out and throw in a regular one anyway.
So here's my thing, right? I was going to ask you, what do you think the best Harley Benton thing is? And I got to say, out of everything that I bought from Harley Benton, it's the cab. I know you have an opinion about the Chinese V30s, but I have an EVH cab with 2 American-made V30s in it, and it does not sound as good as that 112 cab from Harley Benton. And I will say, the fact that they can sell me one for $130, which is less than one of those speakers costs.
Yeah.
Like in a decently built cabinet, 112 cabinet, I think that's the best value that they offer on anything. Even though I love their guitars.
I think you have a point, but I look at things slightly different than you do in the fact that I do so much reselling of stuff and rebuying of things that the main reason that I'm just not sure. And you know what? It's now that you say the price again out loud, I'm like, what am I even worried about for $130? But just knowing that it's, a Harley Benton brand thing, if I wanted to get rid of it, what am I going to get for it? But
you're not going to get anything.
No, I'm not. I'm not. But
that's not what it's for. That's not what it's for. It's for bringing to a show and beating the shit out of, and I don't care because it cost me $130 and it sounds fucking amazing for no reason. For literally no reason. I have it next to an EVH, which is essentially one of those Mesa cabs, right, with 2 American V30s in it, and I put them side by side, and the 112 sounds better. And I don't know why. It pushes harder. It's got more low end because it's an open back, and it just sounds better. And it costs a third of the money.
Then you win the game. I think if I was in the market for an external cabinet, because when I go out and I gig, I use a combo. Because, I'm going for those kind of Princeton-y sounds. I don't use heads anymore when I go out and gig. So if I was doing it the way you were doing it, where I was head and cab kind of guy, then I'd be much more apt to do that.
Yeah, well, now I think they have the, I have a buddy who bought the slanted vertical 212. And that thing sounded awesome too. And I mean, I think they're $230, which again, I just don't even understand how they're getting the speakers for this cheap that they can resell them at that price.
Maybe they're not really V30s. Maybe they're just stickered back on the back. Maybe it's just.
Maybe.
But maybe they've gotten so good at like replicating these things that it doesn't really matter. And as long as it sounds good, who cares?
Yeah, we'll go back there with a hairdryer one of these days and try to see if I can peel the sticker off and see what's underneath.
I'd be afraid to find out.
Yeah.
So you wanted to talk about bands. This is something that we didn't talk about last one or the one before, really. So who have you been listening to lately?
Well, let's see. So the new Between the Buried and Me record came out a little while ago. I did that one, and I have some sort of controversial opinions on that one, so we can hold off on that. But that and the new Leprous album came out a little while ago as well, so I've been rocking that for a bit. I'm curious, have you listened to Leprous at all?
No, but I have heard the new Between the Buried and Me.
Yeah. What'd you think?
I like that band, but I don't know. There's like 2 songs on it. I don't have the iTunes thing in front of me, but there's 2 songs on it I don't feel like fit. But as a whole, it's good. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I'm a big Between the Buried and Me fan. Although I will say I'm the Between the Buried and Me fan that loves the album that everyone hates, which is Coma Ecliptic, because it feels like the only one that feels like a bunch of songs as opposed to like a million parts. And I think this album is getting like universally loved, and I'm not a huge fan.
Really?
Because it feels the most directionless out of all the Between the Buried and Me albums that I've listened to, which, like I said, I like the album nobody likes. I like it when they're focused and they're doing like songs, and this one just feels like a big collection of riffs that have nothing to really do with each other.
No, that actually ties in. Maybe that you just summed up why I felt like 2 of the songs. It's gonna really bother me. We'll talk about this after, but there's 2 songs that just like it doesn't like they're not bad songs, but they don't feel like they're cohesive with the record. The whole record as a whole kind of feels a little
Yeah,
disjointed.
they just don't feel like songs to me. Like it could have been 115-second tracks and it would have felt the same as what they did. You know, like I don't know. I really love them. I think they do great stuff. I mean, they're amazing players and they do some really cool things. But sometimes I just want to be like, just focus a little bit. And like, yeah, part A sounds cool and part B sounds cool, but do they have anything to do with each other? Or did you just go from one riff into the next one? And that's kind of what it feels. And I have a buddy of mine who's a huge BT band fan, and we could not disagree more about this. So.
I'll piggyback off of the prog rock stuff, and I'll kind of bring it back to another point when it comes to records as far as bands that we really like, maybe not liking it as much as other people are. You introduced me to a band called Protest the Hero many years ago. My favorite record is still Kazaya. I think that as unpolished as that is, it's just so raw and so awesome. Fortress, I still don't like it. I still don't like it.
Weirdly I started listening to Fortress is the first one I listened to from him, and I really think that with Protest, the order matters, man. The order matters. Like I got so into Fortress, and then I was like, wait, there's another one, and we went and listened to Kazaya, and that's amazing. Kazaya is amazing. It's totally amazing. It's probably like, I think it's their concept stuff like at the peak of when it is. And, but they did great stuff after. Kazaya's like really like 80s power metal, not power metal, but it's got that influence, right? The stuff after it, like Scurrilous and Volition, are definitely more towards the Kazaya vibe rather than the Fortress vibe. So if you haven't listened to those, you should go listen to those too.
Volition's awesome. I love that riff for Yellow Teeth.
Dude,
how that comes in. Oh, that's so killer.
Yeah, dude, the whole album is just amazing. Volition's great. Plus, probably I do like. Of course, I'm gonna blank on his name. The drummer from Lamb of God.
Oh yeah, you got me on that.
Adler. Sorry. So he subbed in after their original drummer left, and I didn't think he was going to be able to handle it, honestly. Not that Lamb of God isn't fantastic, but it's a very straightforward metal as opposed to Protest being like completely, totally insane. And I think he killed it. I think that record sounds amazing, and the drumming sounds incredible, and they're doing so many new things in kind of cool ways. I will be honest, I'm not in love with some of their newer stuff, and I think it's mostly the vocals that kind of kill me. I don't know if you listened to their new one, Pomplaset. Yeah,
I wasn't the biggest fan.
It just feels like the same stuff over and over again, and like.
Well, didn't they originally start where he wasn't doing the writing, and then he started to do the writing for the vocals, the actual lyrics?
Yeah, I thought it was just the lyrics and not the lines, but I also think that so they got a new bass player too, and the bass player was the one who was writing the lyrics, and I don't mind the lyric change that changed on Volition, and I thought there was some cool stuff. But what I think happened was like the guy who's playing bass for them is also producing the records now, and I just think they're one of those bands that like needs someone to tell them, nah, that thing sucks, and not that I think any of that stuff sucks, but I just think they need somebody in a room saying to them like, hey, this is just like you've done this before, or like push for something new, and now they're not. It's just them in the room, which is fine. Like I get that some bands strive with that, some bands don't, and I unfortunately I feel like they're kind of the band that doesn't, and I say that knowing that like this last record that we're doing it with a producer, and he's just pushed us to do so many things I would have never done before, and now looking back on it, going like, man, I can't believe we almost made all of these mistakes. I'm so glad somebody was there to say, try something different, and maybe they're at the point in their career where they don't want to do that anymore. And that's totally fine. But I'm not the huge fan I was.
I could see Volition being your favorite record. And I think that a song that really kind of sums you up a little bit to me, like the archetype kind of, it's aggressive, but it's so catchy at the same time, is the Newfoundland.
Yeah,
it's such a Dave song. It's such a Dave song. Even with all the group background vocals that come into it towards the end, I'm like, that's such a Dave song.
I think I actually will say that Scurrilous is my favorite record from them.
That is my favorite song. That is my favorite Protest the Hero song of all time on it.
Yeah. Which was the favorite one?
Dunsel. That song's sick.
Yeah. Honestly, I can't even pick a favorite song off that album. Every song on that album is amazing. Um, but yeah, man, Volition's cool. I do actually I do like Newfoundland. Although I will say it's very like propagandy, which I think is a cool thing that they love those guys so much. You can tell it like comes out in their music.
Yeah, you could hear it a lot on Kazaya.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And they're a band I struggle to get into too a little bit though. So, like there are albums from Propaganda that I think are really amazing, and then there are some that I'm like, what were they fucking thinking? Like,
That's how I am with NoFX.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think there's so many bands that you do that with, where you're like, you listen to one album as a kid or something, and you're like, this is the greatest thing ever, and then you go and find the rest of their discography, and you're like, what the fuck? What was I listening to? Because this doesn't sound anything like this.
Yeah. I've actually had the inverse of that, where something I didn't think was that good, I went back and listened to it more recently, and I'm like, this is actually superb. And I'll go into a completely different genre here, but my wife's a big No Doubt fan, and about a year ago, and when I was really starting to actually actively try and learn how to play bass guitar, I had that Rocksmith game, and it had two No Doubt songs on it, and Spiderweb was one of them. I'm like, oh, that sounds like it'll be easy. And I started to notice, I'm like, he's decent, like at bass. Like this isn't just brain dead stuff. So I listened to the whole album. That's unironically fantastic from top to bottom. That's one of the better pop records I've ever heard.
Yeah, and they didn't really start to lose it towards the end when it was started to become the Gwen Stefani show, and that was when it kind of fell off a little bit. But man, they had some great records before then, and they were doing some really cool stuff. And like, I really liked anytime they did some covers. They were really good at like reimagining things in a really fun way. And I liked when they were a band and it felt like a band that was, like playing off of each other's strengths. And yeah, their bassist kicked
Yeah,
ass.
and it
He's
just
awesome.
became digital. That's the same thing. A band like Metric did the same thing, where it was really guitar driven early on, and there was a lot more energy to it. And when you would see them live, you could feel that. But as they kind of transitioned, it went to the Emily show, just like it went to the Gwen show, and everything became a lot more synth based and a lot more sample based. So when you go and you see that stuff live, it's just not the same thing, and that's cool. Some of those songs, I like some of those songs too, but it's you don't get that feeling from everybody interacting with each other.
This is an interesting question. So, it brings me to an interesting question. So my sister and admittedly me is a huge Billie Eilish fan, right? And I really actually love that last album, not the newest one. I don't think I've actually listened to that much, but the one with Bad Guy, the big one. It's incredible, right? From a production standpoint alone, it's some of the most amazing recorded material that's ever been done, right? It's super unique. It's very cool. There's all sorts of like new, kinds of vibes and tones and things going on. It doesn't feel like it's following a lot. It's setting the precedent for pop music as opposed to following it, which is incredible. That being said, so she got her boyfriend bought her tickets to go see her live, and like I just don't get wanting to see her live. Like for me, you listen to those albums and you're like, what's so amazing is that she sounds like she's like singing right in your ear, right? She's like right up there, and she's making all these weird noises, and there's like cool shit going on in the background, and like crazy tones and stuff, and like 8 different snares layered onto each other. Like it's never gonna sound like that live. Like, so to me, I feel like what's the point, and obviously she doesn't feel that way. She's like so excited to go see her. But I said this at one point and everybody was just kind of like, oh, you're just like, you're annoying about music or whatever. And I'm like, I know I am obviously quite annoying about music, right? As all musicians are. But I don't know. Like, what do you think about seeing a band, or like, maybe seeing like a hip hop artist where it's like, if the record and the way it sounds on the record, like, is a product of the production process and it's not doable live, like, is it worth seeing an artist like that to you live?
Yes and no. I'll make a really good example of that, of a band I did see live that was rap, and it was better live than it was on recording, and that was Talib Kweli with the Roots. That was, whoo, that was really good, because it still had that real energy to it, and there was like this tension, dude. It was like this legitimate like tension when you're watching them play, because like he's such a passionate guy, and it's something that in the record you hear what he's saying, and it's not like he's changing the words, but when you see somebody like really like saying what he's saying live, it's like it's powerful, man. So I thought that was good, but as a whole, no. Like, for example, I got dragged. Oh my god. to the Gramercy Theater. Yes, had to have been 2009, 2010. I saw Lily Allen with a girl, and dude, oh man, it was painful. I was at the bar a lot that night.
Yeah, yeah. I could definitely imagine. Yeah. Luckily, my wife is a fan of all of the same music I am, and we never go to crappy shows. We only go to great shows. So I don't have to. I mean, sometimes there's shitty.
There's
openers,
always
but
shitty
there's
openers.
always
We were the shitty
right?
openers at one point.
Yeah.
No, but I'm lucky in the same boat too. Obviously, my wife is a musician, and for the most part, we're like 99% on music that we like and dislike. So, it's just there's certain things where I'll just look at her like, you don't get it. What's wrong with you? Like she hates Eric Johnson, and that's just painful for me because I love Eric Johnson, but I can understand it. But there's some stuff that she can listen to, and I'm like, this is terrible. Like I gotta walk her like I can't stand Amy Winehouse. I can't stand her. I think she's atrocious. She oversings. But I mean, like what my wife loves her. So I mean, it is what it is. So it kind of goes like, I don't really play Eric Johnson. She doesn't really play Amy Winehouse when the other person's around.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think me and my wife have a couple too, but we're mostly down on the middle. And the ones that she hates of mine are ones I totally understand. Like she can't stand listening to the Faceless, and I get it. Like nobody who's not into death metal wants to listen to the Faceless. Except me, 'cause I'm not really into death metal either. But they're like jazz death metal, so I feel like it's kind of, they are weird. But like, man, Akeldama is just that album is fucking amazing. I mean, put aside the screaming, some of the guitar work that's going on that album is just fucking unreal. And I remember the first time we listened to that band, and I was like, this can't be a real drummer. There's no way there's a guy playing this. And there was a dude playing that shit. It sounded so incredible that it was like programmed.
Yeah, that's how I felt about Strung Out for when I was younger. I never thought that there was any way he could actually do that live and do it all in a row live. And the first time I saw them, it was an eye-opening experience because it was at a Warped Tour. And obviously you see all sorts of bands. And in that era, there was the Fat Records kind of pop punk, but then you had bands on Fat Records like Strung Out. That was not pop punk. Like the majority of that was like, it was like kind of edging between punk rock and metal. And some of those bands were god awful. Like god awful. I saw like Funeral for a Friend is one of the worst live bands I've ever seen. I still love some of their records, but god, they suck live. And NoFX, obviously, they'll be the first to tell you they suck live too. But when Strung Out came on, it was like I zoomed so hard in because they were better live than they were on the record. And I didn't think that was possible because they're a technical band. Like that's what they hang their hats on. And so to be able to perform at that high level, and physically at the speed that they're playing at for that long of a set, I mean, hats off. That's a band that has never disappointed me live.
Sure. You ever not see a band because you think that they're gonna
all
ruin
the time. All the time. Basically anything modern, I just assume that the vocals are going to be terrible because I know how much production goes into the vocals these days.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I put off seeing Periphery probably for like 4 years for that exact reason. Especially for that first Periphery album where it's just like crazy tuned. And I'm like, there's no way he can do any of this shit live, right? And I'm going to see him and it's going to fucking kill it. And I love Periphery and I don't want to remember him being awful live. And then they did a tour with Chon, and I was like, it was Chon and Sixth, and it was the first time that Sixth had been in the U.S. in like 20 years or something. And I was like, all right, I can't miss it. And we went and saw him, and then he was fucking amazing. And I was like, oh, I shouldn't have put this off. And who knew he could actually do it? And I've seen him a couple of times since then, and he's been phenomenal every time. And I'm surprised. So, shout out to Spencer that you can actually pull
incredible.
All that shit off.
That's very surprising to me because I would sit in the same boat as you before you told me that story. And that's something that I worry about. And I don't want to be that guy. Like, I don't want to go to a show and hear the tuning because I'll still hear it live. You're not fooling me. You know what I mean? Whereas the rest of the crowd's like, oh, this is killing it. And I've been there and I'm like, I can hear the tuning. I can hear the vocals being processed in real time. Like, guys, I can't do it.
I think even musicians, though, there are obviously us who do recording and stuff, and we know about it, and we know, enough of what goes on. But there's a good portion of people who are like, I'm at the show, I'm hearing him, he's doing great. And it's like, they can tune live. Like, it's not it's not only recording mojo, like it can be done live too.
Yeah, you could buy a little TC Helicon pedal. You can do 3-part harmony right on stage. You can do note correction, pitch correction right on stage. You can do all that stuff. And obviously, the bigger budget you have, depending on the size of your act, you have a lot higher quality stuff available to you. So
absolutely, yep. Yeah, I mean, we do backing tracks. I do harmonies out of the backing tracks because it's just, it's easier than trying to have everybody struggle through singing and playing and stuff. And, some people come up to afterwards and they're like, man, only you were singing. And I heard more
like,
voices.
how high are you, man? Are you,
yeah,
what'd you smoke?
Yeah. Yep. But, I mean, we tried to do it initially. Like, we had an older drummer who could sing and play, and it was like, they both end up sucking, right? Like, he can either be really great at drums or really great at backing vocals, but you can't do them both at the same time.
I'll kind of transition, but based on that topic. One of the reasons that I was thinking about this the other day, I was like, why did I never sit and learn how to play lead guitar? It was one of those things. I was like, I always kind of liked it. I always, I like a lot of lead guitar players. I enjoy it. So what was it about it that I never just sat down and did it? And it came to me. I was the only guitarist in the band for every band that I've ever been in. And so when I'm writing songs, like I always wanted to have the guitar in the background. So I would write short little bursts, maybe, 8 or 16 bars and nothing ever more than that, because I didn't feel like it would sound right without all the other guitars behind it. And obviously when I was starting and playing out at bars and stuff in the late 90s and early 2000s, there was no such thing as a backing track. And, I wasn't going to do pre-programmed loopers or anything like that. Dude, I had a hard enough time dialing in a delay, whereas the tempo would match the actual thing of the song. I was pretty stupid. So, but it's just funny that really is why I never really sat and learned lead guitar. It's just how I trained myself without thinking about it of writing.
Yeah. I think when you do, like, especially the 3-piece thing, like we're now doing the 3-piece thing, like, you have to think about the guitar in such a different way, right? You're like filling sonic space. You're thinking about like frequency ranges and like, what's getting put here in terms of space, and like, what areas of the ear am I occupying, right? And like, I feel like being a lead player is just about like, what can I do to show off, or like, what's the melody line I'm doing here, or like what's my phrasing, and I mean, phrasing is obviously something that comes up with the 3-piece stuff too, but it's just such a different mindset. And it's like, if you're in the space where you're going like, how do I sound fucking huge in this part, like, you're not in the same headspace as going like, what's a solo gonna sound like, so yeah, I totally am there with you. And I just never got good at lead because I suck at guitar. And
I suck at guitar too. Don't worry about it.
I was like, I'm gonna spend more time doing vocals because it'll get me chicks. And
I did the opposite. I was always the drummer, and then I was just like, this is bullshit. Like, everyone's going to the guitar player afterwards. And I was like, I could be better than him. And yeah, so I picked up a guitar and I carried on from there. But yeah, it's always funny. You always want to kind of graduate. And when you're younger, you're very easily swayed to whatever will get girls to come over and talk to you after the show.
Dude, and do you remember being that age and being able to just like pick up a new instrument? Man, I wish I still had that. Like, I don't have the time, and two, is just like the ability for my brain to be that malleable where I could just be like, yeah, you know what, like, it'd be cool to learn drums and like sit down and kind of learn drums, even though I'd never touched them before. And like, I don't think I could do. I'm not going to be like, yeah, I could probably learn to play clarinet. Like, there's no way.
No, I'm with you 100%, and it sucks because there's a few instruments I really wanted to learn how to play brass at some point. I just never did it. But I have like a baseline knowledge on a bunch of instruments, like piano. But like, I'm never gonna get good at piano. Like, it is like, I can play the thing, but I'm not gonna be good at it, and I know I'm not. And I'm not gonna, with the little time I do have, because obviously you understand, you work and you have a child and a wife on top of that, so it's like you really got to pick where you're focusing your energy. But it still pisses my wife off to this day that I could pick up a ukulele and outplay her with like no effort. It just it drives her nuts. It's easy. It's easy. If you know anything about guitar, it's extremely easy. But I mean, like, she was like really impressed by that when we first met. She's like, other guitar people have picked it up and they've tried to play and they can't. I'm like, Yeah, are you sure they were guitar players? Like, really?
No, honestly, the ukulele is the shitty guitar player's guitar. Like, it's everybody who plays guitar plays, like, you play really boring chords on ukulele, and that's pretty much all you can do anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, it sounds cool, you know. You're like, oh, I only have to know like 4 shapes, then I can just kind of move them around. Like, it's funny how simple it is and how much it's like, oh, if I only know how to play 4 guitars on or 4 chords on a guitar,
Yeah,
I
if you
also
know
how
your
to play the
triads
ukulele.
on the G, the B, and the E string, you're good to go on that instrument. It's that simple. But it is a fun thing to sit around with. I found myself having more fun sitting with one of those. Like my kid has like a $15 Kala ukulele, and I will sit and I'll work on my finger picking with that on those little triads, and the dog will come up and jump on me, and he'll knock it into something to go out of tune. My kid will drop it on the hardwood floor, and I'm like, I don't care. But if I'm sitting here with a guitar and that happens, it's a little bit of a different thing. So I think it's a cool instrument to have lying around.
Yeah, well, I also feel like this is going to sound stupid, but the fact that it can lie around and it's tiny and it's not in the way is what makes me play. Like, there was a period of time where when we had a bunch of shit going on, I could never get over to the studio. So, like, all my guitars are in the studio, so I didn't touch them. But the ukulele is sitting in the living room next to my like comic book area. So like when I'm walking around the house, I'll just pick it up and just start like messing around with it. So I ended up playing the ukulele for like 2 weeks, way more than I was touching a guitar, just because I can just go put it back over, on the couch or whatever, and it's like not in the way. So, but we were at a like a convention at one point doing like a big festival, and they had a bunch of these ukulele brands down there. I think say the name of the one that you said your daughter has again with a K.
Kala.
Yeah, they were down there, and then there was 2 others, and we were walking by their booths, and I picked up one of their ukuleles and just like strummed around a little bit, because after we had one for a while, and I know 4 chords, and the guy like ran up to me and he was like, "Hey man, are you a ukulele player? Like, are you looking for sponsorship?" Like, he was like in my face about it. Like, I just don't think they're like trying to push ukuleles hard, and like they got that one huge Hawaiian guy, and that's it. That like, who else are their brand ambassadors? So they're just like,
There is one guy, Jake Shikamaru.
yeah, he's the
He's a
guy who
Hawaiian
he's
guy.
the guy who like he had a viral video of him playing Bohemian Rhapsody for a while, right?
Yes, he
Yeah.
plays out live. He's
Yeah,
he's pretty good.
He's pretty
a fun
amazing.
time.
Yeah. But these guys were like, I swear I could have just lied and said I was a ukulele player, and I think they would have given me a ukulele. So my point is, if anybody listening is like, hey, I want to like be a big ukulele player, like, go do it. They'll throw it at you, I think.
So you're telling me that I should change from a guitar channel to an ukulele
To
channel?
you, yeah, you're gonna get half the views, but I mean, you're gonna get all the sponsorships because there's nobody else to compete with.
But would I really get half the views? I don't know, man. Maybe I'll tap into a new market here, and I'll just that would be really funny actually. What if I rammed the ukulele through the quad cortex and through the Strymons?
It
And
probably
through
sound
all that
amazing.
fun stuff. No, I know, but what if I made demos of all that stuff? I would literally be like the only one doing it.
The
Oh
only
man.
guy. The only problem would be you'd only have about a month's worth of content, because what are there, like 8 different ukuleles, and that's it. Like three brands to choose from, and they have 4 models apiece. I don't know. I don't know if you have enough to keep it going.
Do you know who makes ukuleles for $20?
I'm sure Fender, right?
Harley Benton.
Ooh.
I could order like 6.
I mean, I think you'd have to with the $30 shipping, right? Like, to make
I know,
it worth it.
but that's the joke of it. I could order 6, and that'd be pretty cool. Like hand paint them and then sell them for like, I don't know, $5 profit locally.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Ah, I didn't think we were gonna go into this angle tonight, but yeah, scheming, always scheming.
Hey man, I think if you were like a halfway decent singer and you knew how to play ukulele, like, you could really do something. You're not competing with anybody, right? I mean, think about that guy learned Bohemian Rhapsody, which is not even that difficult of a song, and suddenly his shit's all over fucking Facebook. Like, I think it wouldn't be that hard to become the guy for ukulele, right? Like, before the Bohemian Rhapsody guy, it was just that guy, the Hawaiian guy, for like 10 years, right? 10, 20 years. The only person you thought of when you thought of ukulele was that guy singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, right?
I can't believe we gotten to this point.
I'm just saying, somebody's looking for like a new angle. They like want to reinvent themselves. Like, this is an open field,
You're half tempted me to do it because I mean, and the other thing is, I have been singing more lately too because obviously I have the other record coming out, but I I don't know. I'm would I really want to do that with an ukulele though? That's something I don't know. I do play and sing with it though because it's like you said, it's just what's lying. No, it's just what's lying around. Like the only instrument that leaves this room because I'm terrified of my toddler destroying anything, and my dog already damaged a guitar. He knocked the lighting fixture over on the baritone cabronita, and he destroyed the top of it. Like it had a huge divot, and so I was like, oh, that guitar's ruined. It looks hideous. I sold it. I think I lost like $140 on that. I was like, no, I'm like, that's like damage. And I was like, there's none of them shipping right now. So if I'm gonna sell it damaged, I gotta sell it while there's none. So it's like the Quad Cortex. You gotta sell before everybody gets it.
Yeah, yeah.
So stupid. But all right, I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna keep it a little bit early. I mean, it's still 51 minutes. But is there anything you'd like to get in before we get going here? I liked how we went into the music stuff and transitioned all the way to ukulele. That was definitely unexpected and fun.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. No, man, I got nothing going on right now. We're hunkered down, second wave here, and hanging out, trying to get some stuff done. Hopefully I will have some stuff to talk about soon, but nothing at the moment.
Nothing with a record.
Now, we're finishing off rewriting, and I'm fingers crossed that we're gonna get the okay from the producer to start going into hardcore recording mode. That's what I'm looking forward to, and I'll have some cool updates about some stuff we're doing then when we start doing that.
All right, cool. I gotta send you over. I got the masters for the last stuff I did with Dave in San Diego, so I'll send that over to you. I actually think the engineer did a really good job, so I like to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an experience. You know what it is, but I actually think he did fairly well, considering all things that were involved. So I won't bore anybody else. We won't get into anything further than that. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know what you think about Billie Eilish, auto-tune, ukuleles, and the Quad Cortex complainers down below. Other than that, I will see you tomorrow for another guitar-related video. Take it easy, everybody.